Just as, you know, as a private citizen, it was always exciting when some politician came through town. Of course, most notably, John F. Kennedy in 1960, when he was running against Richard Nixon for the presidency. Howard Smith Jr. was the mayor of Geneva at that time, and so it was his honor to introduce him to the crowd at the courthouse, and where he spoke for quite a while.
The crowd around the courthouse where he spoke, he was on a little tour and stopped briefly in Geneva, and people knew he was coming and greeted him there. There was a group of local women who held signs in his face. They were of the opposite party and created quite a, I guess, sensation. It wasn't very good for Geneva because it was on the news about how they heckled him.
The year was 1960. I was either a 5th or 6th grader at St. Peter's School. John F. Kennedy was in Geneva at the time campaigning. They bussed us down to the courthouse in Geneva. He gave his campaign speech. I went up to him, I go, "Congratulations, Mr. President." And he looked down at me with his hand out and said, "Not yet, Sonny," and shook my hand. And it was just a moment to remember.
Kennedy came and gave a political speech on the steps of the courthouse. At that time, the area was solid Republican, and he was a Democrat. And there were a few boos at something he said, and he reminded them that, hey, this is America. We're all entitled to our views. I'm entitled to mine, and you are to yours, but let's be gentlemen about it. And really pulled it off very nicely.
I remember Robert Taft coming here, and that was, I was in grade school. I couldn't tell you, without looking up my history, what year we were, sometimes I suppose in the 50s. And we walked, by the whole school, I think, from 6th Street down to the courthouse, and I guess filled in the street, was blocked out. I couldn't tell you what he had to say. It didn't mean anything to me as a kid, but this was a big deal.
And Chuck Percy was one of our great leaders, Senator Percy. He was in the Swedish Day Parade, and I happened to be the honorary parade marshal that day, and so we rode together in that parade, and that was a pretty outstanding time too.
Julie Nixon was here on behalf of her father later in his career. She also spoke at the courthouse during the time that I served as mayor. And I got the first experience with the security that's required of any of these visiting dignitaries, how thoroughly they went through every room in that courthouse with the Secret Service. And we had purchased, the city had purchased a little glass bowl or decorative item from the Little Traveler, and it was, of course, nicely wrapped by the Traveler. Well, obviously, I found that I had to turn that over to the Secret Service. They had to open it up, and then they had it repackaged again.
Nelson Rockefeller came through town on a train once, and I had this vague memory of going down to the train station, I guess with my parents, and, hello, there he was.
One of the most memorable ones was Dirksen. He was, by his shocking white hair, he was standing on the corner of State and 3rd over by Erda's on a weekend and just stand there. And he always had a crowd around. He was the most personable politician I've ever known. His reputation was flawless.
Senator Everett Dirksen. When Pet Tool on East State Street built their new factory, he was there for the dedication. Now, Pet Tool has moved on or disappeared. That's now Minor Enterprises. But he gave a speech and was always well received because it was mostly Republican territory at that time.
I wasn't very involved in politics. The only person I remember coming was Ronald Reagan when he had something to tell about scholastic achievements and he flew into town with a helicopter, and they sent about half a dozen different helicopters so that no one knew which helicopter he was going to be on as a safety precaution.
Ronald Reagan came in on a helicopter and landed on the campus at St. Peter, the school there, and was greeted wildly, and everybody was glad to see him. He was a very pleasant person, and they were very glad, honored to have him come to Geneva.